it's not a new issue, as we all know. And then China also becoming much stronger, is emerging as a major of the another superpower in the world. But China's one of the soft spot is Taiwan. And I think that has remained there for many, I mean, since China's 1948 at least. And I think this is somehow we need to realize the Chinese sensibility and Chinese importance, and also it matters a lot when Xi, or the President Xi, he is a nationalist. I mean, he's a what you call it, Maoist nationalist. So he also has a lot of his idea of not, he doesn't see himself anymore confined to Mao's persona. He wants to be much bigger than that. So I think given his ambition and given his uh, control of the state machinery, and to justify it, he also wants somehow the Taiwan to an issue to be settled permanently. So that is the China's side. China's important. But at least we also need to look at it, what is happening internationally. Because internationally, though US and most of the European countries, Japan, India, everyone, you name it, they have accepted one China policy or of some sort. They all have, or at least US has committed since 1972 that it should be a peaceful way of the solution of the problem. But they haven't really. None of these countries have a diplomatic, or what you call the established diplomatic contact, or the official diplomatic contacts with Taiwan. So given that, we also need to see what the global situation, global politics has changed dramatically in the last couple of months. This is a way that the way Ukraine issue is being handled by, particularly by the United States, and the way US and Europe are in a very different position of how the sovereignty of a country, or the idea of a country, and how the accusation, or what you call this, taking over or occupying others' country is should be seen by the international community, and particularly the Western powers, has changed dramatically. And I think that gives a certain comfort level to Xi, that if he decides to uh, do a military action on Taiwan, there the world is not going to make much difference, because the US, particularly with its position in the Ukraine, and particularly with the kind of leadership US has now with the Trump, it might be he might feel very sufficiently comfortable that nothing will happen from the US side. Saying that, I'm not saying that Xi will go for the military occupation, because there are other reasons, but it is a perfect moment if he wants to strike. I think China has, of course, overwhelming superiority in the both army as well as naval force and the air power. There is no doubt about that. And then naval force wise, even China has more boats, or the boats rather, the ships, compared to United States now. So now China is expanding its naval forces in a big way. China has three also, aircraft carriers. So those are the things. But I think there is, if there is the overwhelming uh, overwhelming power imbalance is in favor of China, if you look at just the military number and the number of people, per capita, whatever the way. And I think that's everybody knows. I think one thing which we need to realize, that what the Ukraine lesson has learned, which Taiwan has, I mean, Ukraine learned in a a very, in a difficult manner, where Taiwan is what they have done. in their security sector, they have been mostly dependent on external forces or American support, and America has its naval base or the military bases in Japan, Korea, Guam. So I think they think that that will be, but they have spent most of their defense money of acquiring, so the I call it white elephants type of fighter craft aircraft from United States, and then all kinds of there's a big expenditure has been taking place creating these kind of uh, aircrafts, the fighter aircrafts, and also those ships. But what they realized, or they didn't realize, that they need to put significant resources, and the most priority should be a total, what we call it, total defense. Means creating the country in a way that if China even comes in, will not really able to occupy it. So I think China has all the all of its what you can call it, but I think as I see it, it will be faster, easier for creating a combination of naval and air raid. Air raid will be taking away the direct assault or direct confrontation with the Taiwanese army at the front or the port front, but then it will be surrounded with the China's naval power. And I think that will also engage a number of forces on the ground if China decides to do that. I think it will not look the way it will be a surprise, sudden attack with a full force. China will take over the before any Western reaction. It might not, because it might not continue even for the weeks. So it will be probably a week. But within that, I think what I'm saying is that China should be careful not to really say mission accomplished, because that will be because still Taiwan, as I mentioned, will fight back. Because of this, of course, it hasn't really prepared itself, or it has not prioritized itself how to fight back after the formal occupation. But I think this is where they have in the recent years they have understood it and somehow working on it. And I think at this point, I think with the given the global situation, they should put more effort on the how to fight back after this formal occupation and keep a big power always, trying to see how to get out rather than, so it's a good thing to plan for how them to get out. And also that to give the warning to these powers that they should not get in. So Chinese have learned there from the how the Soviet Union. So that's a very cautious how this transition will take place. They also learned a lot with the Russians bungling in Ukraine. And so how they will not give that possibility for the West to provide indirect support even to Taiwan, they will take into that account. That saying that, I think it's a somehow, but also China became much stronger with the Russia's attack on Ukraine, and because Russia was another kind of threat to China, and the West could have played Russia vis-a-vis China, but then Russia and China came together very closely with the Ukraine war, and Russia became completely dependent on, or mostly dependent on China on many issues, and also plays the second fiddle. So I think this is somehow now in the power equation in the non-Western front, it's a very clear, it's a China number one and Russia number two.
Well, it's hard to pick apart where is this all just drum beating and trying to scare people, and where is it real? What we do know is that China hasn't had international combat experience for many decades. So it's got a big army, but they've never actually fought. The British Army, French Army, American armies have all fought recently. Some are still fighting, right? So I think that's a big, big problem. China can talk about combat, but we don't know really what it looks like because we've got no experience since the late 70s. I think the second thing is if you kind of think of this fierce language, well, it is only words. It's a war of words at the moment. Um, what an invasion or an attack on Taiwan would mean is huge. I mean, it would be something, an amphibious landing on an island hasn't been tried since the Second World War and the D-Day landings. And that was straightforward compared to what we're talking about across a bigger stretch of water. By a kind of force that will be trying to take an island of 23 million people who are well armed and who would not it wouldn't be easy. It would be shattering. On top of that, you've got all the economic problems because of the importance of Taiwan for semiconductors. And then finally, you've got the fact that this moment when China did this would be fracturing the whole geopolitics of the world. You'd have a new world where China would be facing the West as really an actual enemy rather than just a country that people say is a bit of a threat or a problem. I think it's unlikely that China will do anything unless it's absolutely pushed into a corner. I think it knows how colossal the challenge is. And therefore, when people talk about invasion by 2027, well, I think it's unlikely still. What could force its hand is if America was suddenly to say, right, we recognize Taiwan independence, or we want to put an embassy in Taipei, the capital of Taiwan, or if Taiwan itself was to say, we want to be independent, we're going to call ourselves an independent state now, then we cross the red line and China will do something. It might be blockades, it might be something more. It has a lot of options, but I think in the short to medium term, I don't think it's going to do anything dramatic. 10, 20, 30 years ahead, who knows? That's going to be a very different world. We can see that world changing already. It may have an opportunity then when the West is simply unable to operate. It may just, wait for the time when everything favors it. A lot of what Trump's doing is obviously very useful to China, I think. I mean, my personal opinion is that, the world, when you've got an America turning on its allies, like Canada and Mexico and, on Europe, well, I mean, of course, for China, this is, yeah, I mean, this is favorable. But actually, I mean, I think the problem really is it's so favorable that it's becoming a problem. China is looking now and thinking, my goodness, we got all sorts of opportunities. We've got an America that might be going into recession because of these tariffs. We got all these countries who are suddenly saying, well, we don't particularly like China, but at least it's predictable, whereas America is very unpredictable. This is very, very unexpected geopolitics. Now, I think for China, there are big opportunities for sure, but it is not used to sort of going out in the lead and taking, proactive positions. It tends to be very defensive. It tends to sort of really want others to sort of go ahead and, it to, kind of follow them. I don't think it's really interested in having a big, big proactive leadership position, particularly if there's a price tag. And I don't think China wants to pay big amounts of money for the security of others, which is in a sense what America has been doing in the last few decades. So this is an opportunity for China. I accept that, but I think it's almost too big an opportunity. It's like, in a game of football when you see the goal wide open, you get so kind of, overwhelmed, you boot the ball, you miss it. I think China's got a wide open goal, and it's kind of thinking, okay, there's something, is this a stitch up or something? I think that's probably going to be the big problem for China. It's going to get very, very suspicious and nervous and think, wow, this is too good to be true, and then might fluff its big, big chance.